Compared to what?
Don't get distracted by Field Griffin at this point.
Pro-nuclear weapons. Do you need to keep on going? What happens next? What happens next? There is, as far as I can see, nothing in the rules to stop the debate happening every week until 2026. As the public are about to discover, Wednesday's debates are not binding on the government. Just remind Andrew Davis and Rhian Apioris, you were both just a few weeks ago defeated by Vaughan Gething for the post of First Minister. Remember that? A clear vote in favour of Vaughan Gething. If Senedd votes to remove the First Minister, then my personal preference is a new Senedd election. Let the voters decide, because a number of you over there may not be coming back. On the current boundaries. The only winner in debates such as this is the Abolish the Senedd Assembly Party. Say they approved it. They elect the First Minister and then vote to remove him a few weeks later. There have been concerns expressed about the financial support Vaughan Gething had. All legal, all declared, all reported to everyone it had to be reported to. That the opposition don't like the person donating is well known. Can I go to the text message, because I was a major person in that. About using teachers' assessed grades rather than using the algorithm, which fortunately we went to the right decision despite the Cabinet spending a long time getting there, which I am severely disappointed. Vaughan was protecting me. During the truth matter, Jeremy Miles wanted to use an algorithm to remove me as a member of the Senedd for Swansea East. That is what was removed. It has nothing to do with the COVID inquiry, but it was to protect individuals, including me. I mean, I don't care what happened there, and I'm prepared to fight my case. But it was an attempt to defend me, which I very much respect and like. But can I just quote about one Conservative donor? Because this is quite enlightening. I can get access via the leaders group. It's usually senior ministers and 15 or 20 people. Sometimes in person, sometimes on Zoom. The last thing I attended was a lunch with Michael Gove in July. It was all donors who were there. Become a member of the leaders group, you have to donated £50,000 in the last year. 2 to 3 lunches a week are arranged, to which around a dozen donors are invited. Groups don't tend to be bigger than this, to ensure all those who turn up get a chance to feel part of something that isn't impersonal. Some donors are very regular attenders, others don't come to any. There's this amount of buying access and influence. I ask people to come to a conclusion on that. I think most of us actually think it is. And this idea of having a leaders group of people paying hundreds of thousands of pounds annually, not a one-off in an election, is fundamentally wrong. I think we really do need to clean up the donation system. And also we need to clean up our rivers. And as somebody who's complained about the Wye and the Usk being polluted along with the Tower, I'm sure the Conservatives will not accept any money from anybody who's polluting those.
Adam Price.
Briefly respond to Mike. I'm sure the current leader of Plaid Cymru would welcome a head-to-head debate with the British leader of the Labour Party to see then who is the most left-wing leader. Last week, while this chamber was quiet, the theatre next door was echoing to the words of one of the Labour Party's most iconic figures in that epic morality play for modern times, Nigh. The man in the title role, Michael Sheen, said of Aneurin Bevan that he had a cast-iron integrity and a raging passion. Sadly, I don't think you can say either of the leadership of this government at the moment. As we heard yesterday, the government is systematically removing all the more radical elements out of its own programme, from reform of the school year to reform of the council tax. So if anyone for a moment thought that some of the First Minister's failings could somehow be justified in the spirit of the end justifying the means, then I challenge you to describe that end, because this is a government that in a matter of a few short months has become shallow and rudderless, shorn of any sense of greater purpose other than the political survival of the First Minister himself. And let us turn to those issues of integrity. The question of dirty money, which bedevils most Western democracies, has thankfully not been much of an issue for us in Wales. Welsh millionaires have not been interested in politics, and Welsh politics has not been interested in millionaires. That happy circumstance, the First Minister has brought crashing to an end. To quote Vaughan himself, "Christ threw the money changers out of the temple, but you have inscribed their title deeds on the altar cloth." Indeed, we could say the First Minister has stitched it into the very fabric of the seat he occupies. A public inquiry into the deaths of over 10,000 Welsh citizens it is reported, taking very seriously the First Minister's failure to inform them of deleted messages. And now that same lack of candour is extended to us. 10 days ago, I asked the First Minister whether a formal leak inquiry was held into the alleged disclosure of a chat group by the former Minister for Social Partnership. I've yet to receive a reply. I asked the Welsh Government's Director of Propriety and Ethics whether he knew. His response, "I'm not aware." Now, the government's silence clearly raises very serious questions as to whether such an inquiry was held, and raises the possibility that the case against the former minister was neither forensic nor formal, and that she was sacked without a proper investigation and with little in the way of due process. I've asked the First Minister whether there was a written report into any alleged breach of the ministerial code by the minister. Again, I've received no reply. I've asked the government's Director of Propriety and Ethics if he was aware of any such report. He said he wasn't. He was walking in the hills of Spain at the time. He was also on holiday when the ministerial code investigation into the current First Minister was held. But on that occasion, he was asked to give advice which was reflected in a written report. No such courtesy was afforded to Hannah Blythen. Now, maybe this is a sign of the new ruthlessness of which Sir Keir Starmer spoke so glowingly recently in an interview with the Daily Telegraph. Rebels in the new model Labour Party must pay a heavy price. But let's remember Bevan himself was expelled from the Labour Party and suspended from the PLP on multiple occasions. And in response to Joyce Watson, one of them was actually when he moved a vote of no confidence in Winston Churchill's government that the Labour Party was part of in July 1942. And when he was criticised for the timing of that no confidence motion, he said the very reason we were fighting the Nazis was that you could hold leaders to account even in wartime. It's Bevan we remember. It's Bevan we remember, not the desiccated calculating machines that condemned him. And it's Rhodri Morgan we remember most, not Alan Michael, because 24 years ago a vote of no confidence was moved. The only other time that has happened in the leader of the government in the history of devolution, and it was passed. Alan Michael, to his credit, resigned immediately. And much of what we have achieved collectively over the last quarter of a century flowed from that singular moment. It's that precedent that has to be followed if the First Minister can no longer command a majority, because that is a foundational principle of parliamentary democracy everywhere. The Assembly back then adjourned. The Cabinet met and brought forward a nomination for Rhodri Morgan as acting First Minister precisely an hour and 2 minutes later. That was not ruthlessness, but it was decisiveness, and it's what this moment calls for now.
The First Minister, Vaughan Gething.
Diolch Llywydd. I regret that the Conservatives have brought forward this motion today. I do not regret it because I think I'm above criticism. I do not regret it because I think I have made and will continue to make mistakes. I am human. I am fallible. I do not even regret it because of the issues it raises, because I have nothing to hide. I regret the motion because it is designed to question my integrity. Like so many of you in this chamber, I have dedicated my adult life to public service and to Wales. Even in the midst of an election campaign, it does hurt deeply when my intentions are questioned. I have never, ever made a decision in more than a decade as a minister for personal or financial gain. Never. I do not doubt the sincerity behind some of the questions that the motion touches on today, even if the motion is transparently designed for another purpose. I hope the people in this chamber and beyond will take a moment to reflect on the sincerity with which I have answered and continue to answer these questions. I will not shy away from scrutiny and challenge. I have reflected on donations, and as members know, I've instigated a review into how that is handled in the future in my party, and I've asked the Cross-Party Standards Committee to look at Senedd rules for all of us. We cannot, of course, retrofit new rules to old campaigns where we don't like the result. That is not how democracy works. But I do take seriously what people have said to me outside the cut and thrust of this chamber. The support that I've received in recent weeks from Labour Party colleagues across Wales and the UK has been overwhelming, and I'm grateful for their incredible generosity of spirit and solidarity. More than that, I want to thank the many members of the public for their support, in person, online, and in a variety of means. Diolch o galon i chi. I also want to recognise that, like me, so many people of colour have been traduced and vilified merely for raising concerns about how some of these debates have been handled. Our lived experience should matter and be respected. We still have a very long way to go. Mae gennym ni ffordd bell I fynd.
We have a long way to go.
Are a normal part of how this Parliament and many others work. It preserves the democratic balance determined by the electorate. Welsh Labour has always paired with other parties during ill health absence. We did so for 3 months with the leader of the Welsh Conservatives. The refusal to do so today, when 2 of our members are unwell, reflects poorly on opposition parties. This is meant to be a motion about confidence, but we know that it is not. The timing tells you everything that you need to know. If Andrew R.T. Davies and his colleagues were genuinely concerned about the issue of political donations, they would have spoken out at a different time. They would have stood up when it really counted. They would have rejected the millions of pounds given to their party by a man who boasted about wanting to shoot a black female MP, or the millions given to their party by a man who served as a minister in a foreign dictatorship. If that party had genuine concerns about how decisions were made and actions taken during the pandemic, they would have stood up when it counted. They would have walked away from the party that partied in Downing Street whilst the country was on its knees. Walked away, not defended a Prime Minister served with a criminal fixed penalty notice. If that party had genuine concern for the integrity of devolution and democracy in Wales, then they would do well to look to their own benches before casting the first stone. To demand of anyone else stand as they have no intention of meeting themselves. They can talk about confidence until they are blue in the face to match their blue rosettes. If they want a real confidence motion, then table one properly in line with standing orders. I will tell them what I have confidence in. I have confidence in Wales and in our younger generation. I have confidence in our campaign to change our country. I have confidence that we do have brighter days ahead of us. And the kind of populist politics that are being promoted day after day by the Tories, I hope, is about to be dealt a hammer blow at the ballot box. I know that some will try to reframe this confidence as arrogance. It is absolutely not the same thing. And if that word did pop into your heads, I challenge you to ask, why? I can make apologies for many things, but I will never shy away from a positive approach to politics, our country, and our government. I want us to be a confident Cymru. To Plaid Cymru, I say this. We have worked together in the past. I have offered you the hand of friendship, practical action, and cooperation. I continue to do so. You yourself recognise the hypocrisy of the Tories. You say you want to see an end of the Tories in Wales. And you come here today to link arms with them. There is nothing progressive about joining the Tory lead in an anti-Labour alliance. It is the very opposite of the cooperation that we have worked through. It is, of course, for you to explain to your voters, members and potential supporters why now, of all times, you would side with a party that makes enemies of the vulnerable, that smashed our economy and treats Wales as an afterthought. Gwlad dros blaid. I will continue to put Wales first. First in thought, deed and ambition as I serve and lead my country. Diolch yn fawr.
Darren Miller now.
Darren Miller to reply to the debate.
Diolch Llywydd, and I'm surprised with the First Minister's response. I didn't hear an apology. It implies that the First Minister would again accept a similar donation if one was made in the future, in the same circumstances as he accepted the first one from Mr Neil. As the Leader of the Opposition said in his opening speech, this debate today is not about anything other than you, First Minister, your judgment, the lack of transparency that we have seen, and a question about your integrity and honesty. It's our duty as an opposition party to reflect the mood of the country and the mood of people in this chamber on all sides, including your own, who have concerns about the judgment which you have shown. To accept hundreds of thousands of pounds, a record-breaking donation, as Andrew R.T. Davies said, to an individual in a leadership campaign in Wales, without doing appropriate due diligence, is frankly astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. And when we consider that even just earlier this week, we heard it implied that there were attempts for you to prevent the release of information about questions which were being raised and questions which were being put to Natural Resources Wales, it seems that there's more emerging every single day about your judgment. And that is what this debate is about. It's not about your government, it's not about the Labour Party, and it's not about a general election. It is about your judgment, First Minister. And I'm afraid that without the apology today, I find it astonishing that we are sat here listening to you saying anything other than sorry. Because frankly, that's the first word that should have come from your lips. And it didn't. And you've let yourself down, and you're letting your party down, and you are letting this Senedd down. Because I'm afraid that this reflects on the Senedd, and it reflects on our democracy. Because when the First Minister of Wales, a nation of which I am proud to live in, and a Senedd in which I'm proud to serve, cannot apologise to the people of Wales for a lack of judgment and reflect, I think there's a serious problem. You've tried to deflect to others, talk about all sorts of other things rather than your own judgment. You've refused to accept accountability for the behaviour, to accept that donation. You are scrambling, frankly, to survive by dismissing this vote as though it means nothing. I tell you, First Minister, every vote in this Senedd should be respected. Yes. And that includes the vote which will be taken today, which, if we are correct by the media reports, you're set to lose. And I think it's extraordinary that you would dismiss that and say that it's inappropriate to listen to that because, again, it shows a lack of judgment. A lack of judgment. And then we talked about the transparency around the sacking of the Minister for Social Partnership, Hannah Blythin. You could simply put this to bed by publishing the evidence. You could put this to bed beyond doubt by publishing the evidence to demonstrate your integrity in the decision that you took. You've chosen not to. You've chosen not to. I won't take an intervention if that's okay. I won't take an intervention. You could put this to bed by simply publishing that evidence. I ask you, why won't you publish that evidence? Why won't you put it into the public domain? You say that you want to... You could easily put it beyond doubt, your integrity, by publishing that information. You've chosen not to. You've misled, it would appear, the COVID inquiry. You suggested that the Senedd ICT department deleted messages on your phone when the reality was that you deleted messages on your phone and encouraged others to do likewise.
Are you taking an intervention from the Cabinet Secretary?
I've made that clear.
Okay.
I've made that clear. There are questions to be asked about your judgment. There are questions to be asked about your integrity. And there are questions about whether you're being honest with your own party, with the people of Wales and this Senedd. And I'm afraid that because of that, we will be voting in favour of this motion which recognises the concerns of the people of Wales. Now, you say that this thing isn't being discussed on the doors across Wales. We're in the middle of a general election. There are conversations, thousands of conversations taking place each and every day with Labour supporters, Conservative Party supporters, Plaid Cymru supporters, Lib Dem supporters across the country. And I can tell you, this is a frequent topic of conversation raised by people on the doorstep, not by politicians prodding them about these things, but by them asking questions about your judgment and your integrity. And we have a duty, therefore, in this Senedd to make sure that those views are reflected. And I can say this, if the people of Wales don't have confidence in you, then neither do we.
A question you...
The proposal is to agree the motion. Does any member object? There are objections. We will therefore defer voting until voting time. The next debate under item 7 is the Plaid Cymru debate on HS2 funding, and I call on Delyth Jewell to move the motion.
This is not just a debate about a railway line. It is about how Westminster disregards the needs and the voice of Wales. HS2 is a railway line in another country that we are nonetheless funding, a track that does not break our border, but that is costing us billions to run. And so we lose money by something that makes us even poorer. Time and again in this Senedd, we have agreed that the situation is unjust, unjustifiable, and yet nothing changes. Not even that. Westminster does not deign to notice. Now, if there were an elsewhere, say in Eastern Europe or South America, somewhere far away, where a nation was starved of funding for its own infrastructure, but paid towards enriching its neighbouring nation, it would be seen as absurd. Whole opinion pieces would be written in newspapers aghast at such a blatant stitch-up. Yet beneath the noses of the broadsheets, we get barely a mention. Wales is a nation to the side of what commentators consider worthy of their attention. As one Guardian journalist wrote some years ago, forget Wales, which does not matter. Well, Llywydd, it matters greatly to us. It matters greatly that our own tracks need repairing, that our only electrified lines are there to get passengers more quickly to England, that the billions we've been starved of for HS2 could have been used to connect our own communities, that it matters to us that neither Labour nor the Tories have pledged to put this right if they win power in Westminster. Wales is alone amongst the nations of these islands in paying to the farce of calling it an England and Wales project could not be more blatant. But that's the attitude. Forget Wales, which does not matter to them. Time after time, vote after vote, this Senedd has spoken with one voice, telling Westminster to give us back the money we're owed from this project, to reclassify it based on reality, not falsehood. But those motions don't matter to them. Mr Sunak and Mr Starmer see fit to ignore Wales beneath the notice of one and outside any interest of the other, either taking us for granted or for fools. That is the lot under the rotten Westminster system for Wales. They know we are owed this money, but we are told it isn't a priority. That Wales is not a priority. Forget Wales, which does not matter. That is how they view us. But we have had enough of their indifference, of being told to wait and see what we will get given. Always maybes for Wales, always least of their concerns, foisted always to the background, always wait your turn. We will not make do with waiting. Waiting for investment that is rightly ours. We have waited and waited in vain for fairness to be shown us by Westminster. They build railways that make us poorer and charge us for the privilege of our poverty. Forget hoping for the best from Westminster. Doing what is right does not matter to them. We have been here before in Wales, on this track that gets us nowhere. Instead of waiting for fairness to be shown us, it's time we demanded what we are owed. Let's send a message to them in Whitehall that these billions matter to Wales, and they're a matter which must be met.
Natasha Ashka.
Presiding Officer, and can I thank Plaid Cymru for bringing this debate before the Chamber this afternoon. Let me start by being crystal clear. I've said it before and I'll say it again today. The Welsh Conservatives have long called for Wales to receive its share in HS2 consequential funding. And I've had many conversations with my transport counterparts in Westminster on this matter on a few occasions, and I know some of my colleagues from MPs to MSs have done exactly the same. We will continue to make that case, and indeed we have wholeheartedly supported previous motions to reclassify the rail project as England only. It is important to note, however, that we do not want this extra money to go straight into the Welsh Government's bank account, as we all know how reckless they are when it comes to spending taxpayers' money. Instead, we believe the money should be given directly to Network Rail, as it is better placed to invest wisely in our transport infrastructure, and I have confidence that they won't fritter the cash away on vanity projects. Whilst we do believe HS2... Go ahead.
But Network Rail are in charge of the railway infrastructure, aren't they? So,
to an extent, but as you're aware, Carolyn, because I know you're very passionate about transport, a lot of the train lines have links between Network Rail and TfW, and that's where the money's going to go.
Okay.
Whilst we will believe HS2 should be reclassified and Wales should see extra money as a result, there is no denying that our country is benefiting from the UK Conservative government's decision to axe the Birmingham to Manchester leg of the rail scheme. As a result, the UK government announced it would be investing £1 billion in electrifying the North Wales main line, which will bring parts of the country within an hour of Manchester. It would also lead to more reliable and punctual journeys on the route between Crewe, Warrington, Chester, Llandudno and Holyhead. This is genuinely good news for Wales, Presiding Officer. Not anymore, please, I'd like to carry on. Labour leader Keir Starmer has time and time again refused to commit to giving Wales extra HS2 money. Should he, and this is an incredibly frightening thought, become Prime Minister in the next few weeks, hopefully he will never get his hands on the keys to number 10 Downing Street, but if he does, he has been clear that no cash will be forthcoming to Wales. So I'd be keen to know what discussions Labour ministers here have had with Keir Starmer and his team in London and what their response has been so far. And, in fact, has the First Minister raised this issue directly with him after their meeting last week? Perhaps the Cabinet Secretary for Transport could shed a little light on the sorts of discussions the government has had with Keir Starmer when he responds to this debate a little later on. Presiding Officer, whilst there may be some discrepancy on how we'd like to see the funding administered, it's fair to say we are all in agreement that Wales should receive extra funding for HS2. Regardless of what happens on July the 4th, we must all keep the pressure on to ensure that it happens and the Welsh public gets what is due to them. To that end, we will be supporting this afternoon's motion.
Rhina Piorwerth.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Llywydd, ag...
Thank you very much, Llywydd, and I'd like to start in the spirit of glorying in the fact that there are some issues in this Senedd where we have more in common across parties than separates us, and it's a cause of real pride that we as a Senedd had stated with one voice a little over a year ago that HS2 should be redesignated as an England-only project. One can't hide from the fact that there is a fundamental injustice in the fact that taxpayers in Wales are to all intents and purposes paying for a railway in England, which not only brings no benefits to Wales, but according to studies is actually damaging to the Welsh economy. But having identified that injustice and agreed upon it, the question, what next, still hasn't been answered.
Debated HS2 last April, the then Deputy Climate Change Minister Lee Waters said it was a scandal that Wales wasn't receiving its fair share of consequential funding. But arguably the greatest scandal is that even in a general election campaign, traditionally at the time of big giveaways and pledges and promises, we've heard nothing from either the Conservatives or Labour on righting the HS2 wrong. Now, committing to HS2 consequentials, I would argue, is one of the most obvious litmus tests for any would-be UK government when it comes to being serious about fairness for Wales, because there is nothing fair about the current state of our railways. The line between Glasgow and London was electrified half a century ago, yet the North Wales main line is still waiting for electrification. The South Wales main line only as far as Cardiff. Now, Wales is home to around 12% of the UK's rail infrastructure. We receive 2% of the UK's rail investment. All the while, Transport for Wales train services accounted for more than 1 million minutes worth of delays in 2023. Now, £4 billion is a good estimate of the fair share from this project that should be coming to Wales. A project that won't see a single mile of track built here. £4 billion, whatever the exact figure, could be ploughed into transforming our public transport network. Buses, we know how much they've suffered. Rail, improving road links between north and south, east and west. It could go so much of the way towards making up for the decades of chronic underfunding by successive Tory and Labour UK governments. Now, back in October, the UK Labour Shadow Secretary of State, Joe Stevens, claimed that Labour couldn't commit now to HS2 funding for Wales, stating that a Labour UK government would have to work out what the needs for Wales are in terms of transport after an election victory, that they hadn't seen the books. Of course, only this week Keir Starmer is able to make a cast iron pledge to renew Trident, again without having seen the books. So why not on this injustice? And that is why the motion in front of us today is so important. It's a way that the Senedd can send a clear and united message to the next UK government. And that UK government is almost certain to be a Labour government, regardless of how Wales votes, which is why a vote for Plaid Cymru in this election is so valuable. But the message in this vote today is that Wales deserves that fairness and the funding that we need to build connectivity and a rail network fit for the 21st century. So I urge all members who share that view to support the motion today.
Carolyn Thomas.
HS2 has been a complete disaster by UK government, ripping up countryside, destroying homes and costing the taxpayer billions. I met someone who's now living in Flintshire whose home was compulsory purchased. He was so angry at the scheme and the devastation it's caused, plus the massive costs as well. In 2011, costs were projected at £32 billion, but by 2020 they were projected to be £106 billion, and I believe that the first phase from London to Birmingham will now cost £66 billion. It's an extremely expensive white elephant and a distraction from the reality that investment is desperately needed to the Victorian rail infrastructure right across the UK, and particularly in Wales, which, in the railway infrastructure, I think is mostly in control of the UK government through Network Rail. HS2 will now just save a few minutes to get from Birmingham to London. That's all with all that investment. And the decision to label HS2 an England and Wales project is ridiculous. In reality, it could have a negative economic impact of up to £200 million in Wales. And I believe it was a cynical move to cheat Wales out of much needed investment through consequentials. 3 times rail infrastructure bids were put to the UK government for level up funding and rejected. And these priorities in Flintshire included the Deeside Industrial Park station to create access to thousands of jobs and getting freight off the line at Hanson Cement in Paiswood. There was also the Wrexham Gateway project as well, which was rejected 3 times. Bids were comprehensive and had cost lots of valuable time and resources. And feedback was that while the projects were good, available UK levelling up funding was limited. But then this year, level up funding has been given to Canary Wharf in London, which is more than the whole of Wales combined, and I don't understand the lack of fairness at all for Wales. 14 years of underinvestment in the pursuit of austerity has led to real-term cuts for railways maintenance, which will see a severe reduction in scheduled maintenance tasks, which really worries me further. To make railways safe, we need that investment. Network Rail will cut 1,850 maintenance jobs as part of the modernising maintenance programme, and we need to be concerned about that. This is at a time when we should be investing in flood prevention, as the instances of severe weather events come to intensify. And I'm increasingly concerned about the future viability of the North Wales mainland as the threat of changing weather and climate change looms. I know we had a recent high tide, the tide nearly overcame the railway line recently. I want to see a new UK government that understands the importance of transparency and an end to Westminster departments finding money down the back of the sofa so they don't have to pass on the consequential funding to Wales. We need a UK Labour government who respects the importance of devolution and is willing to work collaboratively with the Welsh Labour government to deliver positive change for Wales going forward, with true transparency. And this will be a stark contrast to the Tories who have attempted to bypass and undermine our Welsh Government and the Senedd at every opportunity. Thank you.
Kevin Campbell.
Thank you, Llywydd, and thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. And I want to focus on how more investment could transform the provision of public transport in rural communities like the areas that I represent in Mid and West Wales. Communities that suffer because of poor public transport. When I go out to meet constituents across the region, and I've done quite a lot of that over recent weeks, one of the issues that most affects them, and they tell me this time and time again on the doorstep, is a lack of public transport. And this particularly impacts young people and pensioners. The absence of public transport options is among the biggest issues that they are concerned about. For too many rural communities, the idea of convenient rail links is just a pipe dream, and often these are the same communities that face losing their bus services as well.
Transport is a driver of rural poverty and social exclusion. It makes it harder to do business and more difficult for people to access education, training and other essential services like doctors, dentists and pharmacies. Where rail services do exist in rural Wales, these are regularly beset by delays and cancellations. The Heart of Wales line has the dubious honour of having the worst customer satisfaction ratings across the whole of the UK. And recently, we've seen cuts to services on this and the Cambrian line. But it doesn't have to be this way. The consequential funding that Wales is rightfully owed from HS2 could help transform rail provision. By investing in our railways, we could improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our services, providing faster, more frequent and more reliable connections across the region. And it could deliver a pathway to reconnecting North and South Wales by rail, plugging the gap in our national transport infrastructure left by the heart-beating cuts. Improving connectivity in North and West Wales would support businesses and help them overcome key obstacles to investment. And investing in our public transport is, of course, absolutely central in the fight against climate change. Quite simply, there is no way to make that modal shift we need if public transport remains so unreliable and inconvenient, where it exists at all.
It is a matter of gross injustice that Wales has yet to receive what it is owed from the investment in HS2. And why, as we've already heard in this chamber, is Labour under Keir Starmer not committed to providing that funding? Every one of us, and we've already heard in this chamber, literally all of us, have called for this to happen several times. There is an agreement between all parties and beyond that this should happen. Even the Shadow Secretary of State, Joe Stevens, has said publicly that this is unjust and deprives Wales of economic benefit worth £150 million per year. Why doesn't she force Starmer to provide this funding that we're owed to Wales as a manifesto commitment? People in Wales deserve train services that are efficient, reliable and sustainable, that connect them to each other. They deserve investment in their local economy that creates jobs and reduces poverty. Vitally, they deserve the money that they are owed, which is about £4 to £5 billion from HS2. We in Plaid Cymru demand fair funding for Wales, and it's high time that both parties in Westminster commit to delivering it, whoever wins the general election.
Rhiannon Passmore.
Diolch, Newydd. I'm also happy to support this motion. High-speed 2 construction would have seen the line connect London and Birmingham. It would have run nowhere near Wales and been of no benefit to Welsh rail passengers. Up until next year, Wales will have missed out on around 350 million as a result of the incorrect classification of HS2 as an England-Wales project, and that amount due is also likely to increase considerably in future years. And in Wales, we still have a Victorian-era signalling on some of our key routes, which should be a priority for investment. Only a mere 2% of the rail network in Wales, under the control of the UK government, is electrified, compared to 40% of the railway in England. And Wales deserves better and deserves its share of the UK electrification cake. If Wales received its fair share of funding from the UK Tory government, it would make a significant difference to our Welsh public services in Wales and the tough, very tough financial decisions we have to make. The reality is that the current funding system is flawed. The Welsh Labour government have set out proposals in reforming the union for a new principles-based approach to UK funding, enshrined within a new fiscal agreement, overseen and operated by a body independent of the UK government. Wales needs a funding structure that is fair, that is based on need, and that delivers for people in different parts of the United Kingdom. But despite the lack of rail funding coming from Westminster, the Welsh Labour government has invested £800 million in a new fleet of new trains, which means that passengers across Wales are now starting to experience the benefit of increased capacity, improved accessibility and higher quality comfort, which is set to also gear and scale in the future. The results of the Welsh Labour government's £1 billion upgrade of the Core Valley line are now being seen with brand new electric trains entering service this year. The investment shows what the Welsh government can do, where it has the powers and the funding. It remains rightly the Welsh Labour government's ambition to secure full devolution of the railways in Wales and end the fragmentation inflicted. Yes.
built, the Metro is co-funded with the UK government. Will you acknowledge that point? Because it's via the City deal, and I think it's nearly 50% of the money comes from the UK government.
It is, but we cannot escape, can we, the abysmal record in terms of rail electrification that hasn't happened in Wales, and we cannot negate that lack of rail spend for Wales, and we must look at this with clarity. The Welsh Labour Government has further invested £160 million upgrading the railway line running through Islam communities. This is an investment responsibility of the UK Government. The Ebbw Vale line, which runs for around 13 miles, was brought back into operation in 2008, having been in disuse for 40 years. And it is a travesty that Victorian Wales had a better transport infrastructure than we do today. This Welsh Labour Government and our Welsh local authorities have been investing, truly investing, in the Welsh rail network, despite virtually no infrastructural and UK monies to match. It deserves now, we deserve, a time for us to see fair funding and fair railway spend for Wales.
Plaid Cymru.
In a crowded field, the story of HS2 in Wales is one of the biggest financial injustices we have seen to emerge from Westminster in a long time. Not a single mile of track will run close to Wales, let alone through it, yet taxpayers in this country are having to pay for it. This is because the Tory government have classed it as an England and Wales project. This confirms that they are not only incompetent when it comes to the economy, but also incompetent when it comes to geography. By the way of contrast, Northern Ireland and Scotland will get extra money that they are owed for a project that is England only. The Treasury knows better than to deny Scotland or Northern Ireland money that is rightfully theirs. Has the Westminster Government come to the conclusion that the Labour Government in Wales will not rock the boat too much over this? By their own estimation, this Government suggests that we should receive around £5 billion based on the country's population if the project was changed to England only. We would get that extra money through the antiquated Barnett formula, which calculates how much funding the devolution administrations receive from the Treasury to spend on devolved areas. Now, Natasha might want to reflect a little wider on the implications that giving the money directly to Network Rail would have. It would erode the devolution settlement and the democratic processes in this place. The Tory government absurdly claim that HS2 is a project that benefits both countries and says that Wales has benefited directly from any increases in the Department for Transport's budget, which has been driven by HS2. In giving evidence to the Senedd's Finance Committee in the last fortnight in our current inquiry into fiscal intergovernmental relations, the respected constitutional expert Paul Silk declared the justifications that HS2 benefited Wales was, and I quote, rather threadbare. It is not right that UK government is able to make these unjust decisions arbitrarily. This isn't a one-off. They've done it twice. The Northern Powerhouse Rail is a proposed major rail programme that will see big upgrades to the connectivity of northern parts of England. Originally, it was supposed to build a new line connecting the areas such as Manchester and Leeds, but has since been scaled back. It will still include significant improvements to rail in the north of England, including Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Bradford and York. The Northern Powerhouse Rail, like HS2, has also been classified by the UK government as an England and Wales project, despite being entirely in England. This means Wales will miss out again, this time on more than £1 billion worth of funding for transport. Commuters in Wales will do well to remember that at the ballot box in July, but also in 2026 at the next Senedd elections, because Labour leader Keir Starmer appears to have rubber-stamped these unjust decisions by refusing to commit to reversing them if elected as Prime Minister. But, of course, we might get a late manifesto commitment from the Cabinet Secretary on his behalf tonight.
The Cabinet Secretary for Finance to contribute to the debate, Rebecca Evans.
Thank you. So the facts of this matter are very simple. HS2 is a railway line between London and Birmingham, and not an inch of track will be built on Welsh soil, and it doesn't benefit Wales, and it should be reclassified as an England-only project. Up to the end of 24-25, Wales will have missed out on around £350 million as a result of the incorrect classification of HS2 as an England and Wales project. That amount is likely to increase considerably in future years. The Welsh Government has been pressing for comparability with HS2 in the future and for the funding that would have come to Wales so far if that comparability had been in place in the past. Looking ahead, the value of comparability will depend on future UK Government transport spending plans, but would be likely to deliver significant additional resources to the Welsh Government. And this could be in the region of £60 to £70 million per annum. The UK Government should also conduct a wider review of comparability with the Department for Transport to ensure greater objectivity in funding decisions and to address the impact of the classification of future rail projects. If Wales received its fair share of funding from the UK Government, it would make a significant difference to our public services in Wales and could alleviate some of the tough choices that we have to make. Not only is our settlement this year worth up to £700 million less in real terms than expected at the time of the 2021 spending review, it's also £3 billion lower than if it had grown in line with GDP since 2010. Our general capital budget this year is worth up to 8% less in real terms than expected at the time of the spending review in 21. We also face rigid limits on our ability to borrow and to carry forward or draw down funds from our own reserves, and yet our Wales Infrastructure Investment Strategy sets out a pipeline of projects that we could invest in to boost the Welsh economy if only we had the tools and the resources. The reality is that the current funding system is flawed. We have set out proposals in reforming the Union for a new principles-based approach to UK funding, enshrined within a new fiscal agreement overseen and operated by a body independent of the UK Government. And this would enable a more rational, transparent allocation of public spending across the UK and ensure decisions as to whether a programme is comparable or not are made on an objective basis. We need a funding structure that's fair, that's based on need, and that delivers for people in different parts of the United Kingdom. The Conservative Government has failed to support priorities in Wales. The UK Government is directing a managed decline of the Welsh rail infrastructure for which it is responsible. Their plans for Network Rail in Wales for the next 5 years will see a reduction in the amount of money Network Rail has in cash terms to look after vital infrastructure. The result will be reduced asset reliability and more infrastructure issues causing delays to rail services in Wales. The Welsh Government has refused to sit back and watch this crisis unfold. We have intervened with an £800 million investment in a new fleet of trains, which means that passengers across Wales are now experiencing the benefit of increased capacity, improved accessibility and high-quality comfort. But this has opportunity costs and has meant difficult decisions elsewhere in our budget. The challenge facing the next UK Government is that the current one has fundamentally mismanaged the economy over the last 14 years, giving us more than a decade of austerity, the reckless mini-budget and a cost of living crisis and record inflation. Despite the challenging public finance position, people in Wales understand that having two Labour governments committed to working together for the future of Wales would be a good thing, and we could make real progress in this and in so many other areas. We have already demonstrated in Wales, where we are responsible for the Core Valley line, the transformation that we can deliver. The results of our £1 billion upgrade of the Core Valley line are now being seen, with brand new electric trains entering service this year. The timetable change taking place this week is a step change towards the turn up and go service that the Metro will offer, delivering more frequent journeys for passengers, improving connectivity and creating opportunity. Our investment shows what we can achieve where we have the powers and the funding, it remains the ambition of the Welsh Government to secure full devolution of the railways in Wales, to enable us to deliver a fully integrated, efficient transport system which meets the needs of Welsh passengers and freight users. Llywydd, Wales deserves to be treated fairly and respectfully by the UK Government, and the Welsh Government should have the fiscal powers and the resources that we need to deliver our ambitions for a prosperous, green and healthy Wales. Thank you.
Delyth Jewell now to reply to the debate. Thank you, Llywydd, and I thank everyone who's taken part in this important debate.
Your support for reclassifying HS2. The point that Natasha makes about Network Rail, that raises the point, of course, about why we need the powers over transport infrastructure devolved to Wales, or else we will forever be shortchanged and short of tracks. Thank you for your contribution. Yes,
Rhyn, this is one subject that does unify us as a Senedd, and it's so powerful and so insulting that the Westminster parties do ignore us, and it's so much more insulting.
It's indeed a litmus test, I think, both for Mr Sunak and Mr Starmer. Test, they are failing. They ignore us because either they don't care or they don't care to notice. Mr Starmer has indeed committed to Trident spending. Why not give us the billions we are owed? Now, Carolyn set out the eye-watering sums of money being spent on HS2. I really do welcome the fact that parts of England are getting that investment, that citizens in England are going to benefit from that. I welcome it for them. But pretending this project benefits Wales is to subvert the reality of morality and of maps. Sonia,
Kevin mentioned the impact on residents in Wales in terms of the poor standard of public transport and those services that would benefit so much from the investment of millions of pounds from HS2. As Kevin mentioned, this is an issue of social fairness. Our poverty as a country is a decision made in Westminster. And yes, it's a question of rights as well. I agree. Why don't we in Wales have the right to have better services?
Support too for the reaffirmation of reality, almost by setting out that HS2 will not come into Wales. It shouldn't be noteworthy that member after member has been reaffirming the blatant realities of geography, but Westminster seems determined to ignore it. We don't matter to them. Now, I agree with Rhiannon about the funding. I cannot understand why the UK Labour leader can't see this too. Peredur talks about the financial injustice at the heart of this scandal, and as Peredur pointed out, both Scotland and Northern Ireland will receive this funding. Why on earth should Wales matter less? And yes, with Northern Powerhouse Rail, with all of these other projects, these injustices are set to continue until Wales has powers over our own transport infrastructure. Now, as the Cabinet Secretary put it, the facts of this matter are clear. Again, they are clear to all of us, but Westminster sees it through another lens, the lens through which Wales does not matter. Now, I welcome that the Welsh Government has argued for this reclassification, and yes, our funding system is flawed. What a dire indictment it is of our devolved settlement, that it's up to the whims of Westminster to see whether what is right, what is reality, gets obeyed. Yep. Now, what this Senedd says should matter to Westminster, because a railway line is about more than tracks and trains. It's about setting a direction for the future. This is not some hypothetical question that is yet to be answered or something for future years. It's a question of correcting a wrong that's happened, a mistake that's already been made, a trick that has already been played. Now is our chance to tell that upcoming Westminster Government, whatever their hue, that Wales is not for waiting any longer. No more maybe next times for Wales. No more being told to wait our turn that never comes. These billions are owed to Wales. They are direly in need to help our communities. And we, in this Senedd, demand them.
Question.
The proposal is to agree the motion. Does any member object? No, there are no objections, and therefore the motion is agreed. Which brings us to voting time, And unless 3 members wish for the bell to be rung, I will proceed directly to the vote. And the only vote this afternoon is on the Welsh Conservative motion on confidence in the First Minister, and I call for a vote on the motion without amendment tabled in the name of Darren Miller. Open the vote.
Caer bleidlais.
Close the vote. In favour 29, no abstentions and 27 against.
Agreed. It is now for the First Minister to reflect on the view that the Senedd has just expressed and the motion that has been agreed. Confidence motions are political, yes, but they are also intensely personal. And while a vote of this nature will have consequences, whatever they may be, I ask us all to treat each other with respect and kindness now. The people of Wales expect that of their Senedd. Felly dyna ddiweddar.
That concludes voting.
On now to a short debate. Some members may be leaving. I ask them to do so quietly whilst Altaf Hussain prepares to introduce his short debate. We'll allow members to leave first in order for you to be heard in silence.
Published a research paper, Evolution of One-Year Mortality Rate in Elderly Patients with Proximal Femoral Fractures. During my career as a consultant orthopedic surgeon, I was seeing a worrying rise in elderly people dying from a hip fracture. When I conducted the research, I found that a delay in operating within 48 hours of the fracture occurring resulted in a doubling of the mortality rate, regardless of the age. A 65-year-old person was just as likely to die as a frail 95-year-old. This is one of the factors that led me into the Senedd, swapping the scalpel for a lectern. No matter how well the surgery went, external factors delaying the treatment had a greatest impact on the outcome of the surgery. In the intervening years, mortality rates have remained stubbornly high. 1 in 3 adults aged 50 and over dies within 12 months of suffering a hip fracture. Older adults have a 5 to 8 times higher risk of dying within the first 3 months of hip fracture compared to those without a hip fracture. This increased risk of death remains for almost 10 years. It's not just hip fracture that we have to worry about. There has been an alarming increase in the whole range of musculoskeletal disorders. Their most common cause for severe long-term pain and physical disability affecting hundreds of millions of people around the world. Common disorders such as osteoarthritis and osteoporosis are the leading chronic conditions in the elderly, affecting almost 50% of people aged 65 and above. 40% of people over 70 suffer from osteoarthritis of the knee, and 25% of all those over the age of 60 have significant pain and or disability from osteoarthritis. 80% of patients with osteoarthritis have some degree of limitation of movement, and 25% can't perform their major daily activity. Using disability-adjusted life years, osteoarthritis is the 4th most frequent predicted cause of problems worldwide in women and 8th in men. Fragility fractures have doubled in the last decade. 40% of all women over 50 years will suffer an osteoporotic fracture. Osteoporosis causes bone to become weak and brittle, so brittle that a fall or even mild stresses such as bending over or coughing can cause a break. And it is well said that you stumble, you fracture, then you try to put weight on that limb, you can't, you fall. So it is the fracture first, then you fall. Osteoporosis-related breaks most commonly occur in hip, wrist, and spine. Bone is living tissue that is constantly being broken down and replaced. Osteoporosis occurs when the creation of new bone does not keep up with the loss of old bone. Osteoporosis affects men and women of all races, but white and Asian women, especially older women, who are past menopause, are at higher risk. And that is the picture now. Yet, according to the latest stats and the forecast, the number of over 65s in Wales is predicted to rise by around 45% in the next 2 decades. So unless we do something radically different, we are going to see a dramatic rise in unnecessary deaths and avoidable disabilities. To say nothing of the strain we will place on our health and social care services. We can't seem to get a grip on waiting times despite the doubling of the health and care budget over the past quarter of a century. The average median wait for hip surgery was 452 days in Wales. Swansea had the longest wait time for hip replacement within an average 668 days wait. 96,500 patients were waiting for trauma and orthopedic surgery across Wales, with nearly half waiting longer than 9 months. A lot of local authorities had average wait in days for admission over 379 days. This means we need to redouble our efforts on falls prevention. After all, prevention is better than cure. This is the focus of this short debate. I want each of us to think about how we can protect our joints and protect our bone health so we can prevent falls in later life. Of course, for those of us already in later life, maintaining joint and bone health is equally important. If we do have the misfortune to take a tumble, we have a much better chance if we have strong bones and healthy joints. And we can take simple steps to take care of our joints and bones, making simple change to diet, taking simple exercises, and simply being aware of our surroundings to prevent falls. We also need a women's health strategy which addresses the impact menopause has on bone health. It is a fact that women lose bone density following menopause, but with preventative treatment, sometimes as simple as vitamin D supplement, we can ensure that those women don't go on to develop osteoporosis. There's a great number of interventions we can take to lower our risk of joint disease, fractures, and the resulting premature deaths, which cost little or are even free. We can stop smoking and drinking too much alcohol. Research shows that both smoking and regular drinking too much alcohol can lead to bone loss and increase the risk of breaking a bone. If you have smoked or drank a lot of alcohol in the past, your bones may have weakened over time. It is very important that you get enough calcium and vitamin D and exercise regularly to keep your bones as healthy as possible. Dietary changes can ensure we get enough calcium and vitamin D. Eating calcium-rich food is the best way to get calcium in your body. It is recommended that adults have 700 milligrams of calcium each day. Adding calcium-rich food to meals or as a snack is important. Calcium-rich foods include milk, cheese, yogurt, calcium-enriched soya products, leafy green vegetables, and dried fruits. Vitamin D helps our bones absorb calcium. If you don't get enough, then your body does not absorb the calcium needed for stronger bones. The main source of vitamin D is from our skin exposure to sunlight. Most people get enough in summer, but spending short amounts of time in the sun without sunscreen. Most people don't get enough vitamin D from sunlight in winter, and it is difficult to get enough vitamin D from food alone. You should speak to your GP to see if they have or they would recommend taking a daily vitamin D supplement. The other important step we can take is regular exercises. Weight-bearing exercises are the best for your bones. These exercises involve standing up and moving your feet and legs, for example, brisk walking, dancing, and running. Making your muscles stronger can protect your bones and improve your balance. Muscle strengthening exercise don't have to involve your lifting weights at a gym. There are simple exercises you can do in the comfort of your own home using the items from around the house, such as the tin of food or bottles of water. If you can do these simple things, we can reduce our risk of joint pain and fracture. Simple intervention which help ourselves maintain a healthier later life, but also reduce the strain on our NHS and Social Services Department. Diolch yn fawr.
I call on the Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Care to reply to the debate. Lynette Morgan.
I'd like to thank the member for South Wales West for tabling this short debate today about the important topic of tackling joint and bone health in Wales. It's always intimidating to respond to Altaf Hussain, this incredible clinician, but this is his specialist area, so it's particularly intimidating this evening. But I'm sure he'll be pleased to hear that I attended and I spoke at the 2nd National Bone Health Conference in Wales at the end of April. Now, our long-term strategy for health and care, Healthier Wales, emphasised the importance of well-being, prevention and early intervention to ensure our health and care systems are more effective, equitable and sustainable. And it highlights the need for better management of long-term and chronic conditions and giving people the confidence and ability to manage and take greater control of their own health. And it focuses on the need to enable and encourage good health and well-being throughout life, while anticipating and predicting poor health and well-being. But despite this preventative agenda and the particular focus on improving bone health, people are still experiencing falls and breaking bones. Now, the data tells us that 1 in 2 women and 1 in 5 men over 50 will break a bone in their lifetime. So just imagine, that's half of you lot. Well, you're not all over 50, but it's a lot of you. Let's just say a lot of you will break a bone at some point. And the fact is that there's almost 1 million people in Wales with musculoskeletal condition. That's about a third of the population. Now, with an ageing population and the added risk factor of more people living with chronic conditions, that, I think, is an incredibly high number. Now, despite how common some of these conditions are, how frequently fractures and falls are, and the impact on people's lives, the fact is that joint and bone health do not always receive the level of attention that other major health conditions do. And it's because of the impact it has on an individual's life and their independence, and the impact and the cost on the health service, not just the health service, as you pointed out, it's the social services, and the wider community, that I've made it a priority. So the evidence shows that fracture liaison services bring clear benefits to individuals in the long term and have been shown to be clinically and cost effective. And that's why last year I made a commitment to achieving 100% fracture liaison service coverage in Wales by September 2024, which would be I think, nation-leading. And we're well on our way to achieving that. Much of this progress would not have been possible without the excellent clinical leadership of Dr. Inder Singh. He's working closely with members of the Fracture Liaison Service, the Quality Assurance Group, and the dedicated Health Board clinical leads. And I've made £1 million available specifically for this service. Now, we continue to fund participation in the internationally renowned Falls and Fragility Fracture Audit Programme, which provides us with a suite of data to help us measure what's working and where we need to focus our attention to improve bone health services. And following the publication of our National Planned Care Recovery Plan in 2022, we've also seen significant improvements in the reduction of long waits in orthopaedics. You can imagine I have been breathing down their necks all over the country when it comes to orthopaedic surgery and getting those longest waiting lists down. And they are coming down very dramatically. Now, outpatient waits of more than 52 weeks have fallen by 71% since April 22, and 2-year waits for treatment have fallen by 72%.
There's a lot more for us to do to reduce long waiting times, but these reductions do show the attention that we and the health service have been given to orthopaedics. With partners, every health board has a local action plan, and these follow good clinical practice in terms of the girth approach and a local review of that approach. Assistance before and after treatment has also been important, and our national policy supports people on the orthopaedic pathway, particularly in managing symptoms. It also assists them in strengthening before treatment. In addition, the National 3A's policy has been developed with Cymru versus Arthritis. It addresses the needs of people on the musculoskeletal pathway, which perhaps need more support as they wait. This focuses specifically on secondary care, but prevention is also very important. We need to ensure that people are aware of these conditions and the support available through primary care and in the community, and we're very fortunate that the third sector supports us in this regard. I'm pleased that a new body, the NHS Executive, has acknowledged the importance and impact of these conditions. It has given priority to the strategic clinical network for MSK and established clinical health for bones and orthopaedics within this network. These groups will bring health workers, the public primary care, secondary care and tertiary care together with the third sector and with communities. Last year we published the quality statement for MSK. We are now creating a quality statement for bone health. These documents set out our vision for improved MSK support and bone health throughout people's lives and across Wales, and they will assist us to integrate health services to provide linked and tailored care and to make improvements to the quality of care for musculoskeletal conditions. So thank you once again for raising this issue and for